There is a well-documented psychological hazard that comes with absolute power. When a human being is placed in a position where every command is obeyed and no impulse is denied, the mind begins to warp. Roman history is filled with the casualties of this authority. You see it in the paranoid executions ordered by Nero, or Caligula demanding to be worshipped as a living god. Without boundaries, the ruler loses their grip on reality, which makes the reign of Marcus Aurelius an incredible anomaly. For nearly 2 decades, he held the total, unchecked authority of the Roman Empire, yet he actively fought against the rot that claimed so many of his predecessors. Beyond his political maneuvering or military strategy, he relied on a specific set of mental exercises to protect his own sanity and maintain his humanity while holding the highest office on earth. Taking the throne in 161 AD, he inherited an empire on the brink of collapse. He immediately faced a massive Parthian invasion in the east, while vast coalitions of barbarian tribes breached the northern frontiers. Inside Rome, the situation was just as bleak. The Tiber River flooded, destroying the grain supply and causing widespread starvation, soon followed by a devastating plague brought back by returning legions. Instead of ruling from the comforts of a palace, he spent years of his life commanding the military from the front lines, enduring the freezing mud and constant violence of the Germanic wars. It was here, in a dark military tent at Carnuntum, that he developed a very private activity. He began writing a series of notes addressed entirely to himself. The collection of these notes, which we now call the Meditations, was never meant to be published. It is a psychological survival manual, written by a man trying to keep himself from falling apart while the world around him burned. You might expect the private diary of a Roman emperor to start with a record of his conquests or a justification of his greatness. Instead, the first book of the Meditations is a meticulous list of debts owed to others. He writes down exactly what he learned from his family and his tutors. He thanks his grandfather for his gentle spirit and expresses gratitude to his teacher Rusticus for being the one to point out his character flaws. He reserves the deepest praise for his adoptive father, Antoninus Pius. Marcus credits him with teaching him how to govern a state without needing extraordinary apparel, a troop of guards, or any of the usual pomp and pride. By starting his diary this way, he was engaging in a deliberate exercise. He was reminding himself that his capabilities were given to him by others, systematically stripping away the dangerous illusion that he was a self-made god. To survive the pressures of his office, he relied on a core concept of Stoic philosophy, known as the dichotomy of control. This diagram shows how it works. You strictly divide human experience into 2 categories. There are the chaotic external events you cannot control, and the internal mental reactions you can. He applied this rule every single morning. He would sit down and prepare himself to deal with vain, deceitful, and unthankful people, telling himself to expect interference from others as a simple fact of the day. But he didn't view these difficult people as enemies. He trained himself to see them as individuals who were acting out of ignorance. To him, they were kinsmen, sharing in the same rational nature and part of the same human community. This cognitive reframing took the sting out of betrayal and incompetence. By expecting bad behavior and understanding its root cause, daily frustrations were reduced from personal attacks into manageable, predictable acts of nature. When the daily stress becomes too much, the standard human instinct is to run away, to seek out quiet country villages, the remote mountains, or the isolated seashore. Marcus argued that physical escapes are ultimately useless if your mind is in turmoil. He believed the only truly effective place to retreat is entirely within your own soul. He wrote that external objects and events cannot actually touch the soul. They stand outside of us. It is only our opinion of those things that causes us anxiety and pain. By identifying his negative opinions and discarding them, he built what the Stoics called an inner citadel. No matter how much chaos surrounded his physical body, his mind remained untouched and serene. He didn't build this psychological armor to hide from his responsibilities. Unlike monks who retreat from society to seek peace, Marcus used philosophy to bear the heavy burdens of the world like a disciplined soldier. The ultimate test of his writing came late in his reign, when Avidius Cassius, one of his most trusted generals, declared himself emperor and usurped the throne in the eastern provinces. A typical emperor would have met this treason with a brutal purge. Marcus refused to retaliate. He protected Cassius's supporters from execution and expressed a profound desire to meet his betrayer and grant him a free pardon. This response demonstrates stoicism in practice. Aurelius acknowledged the primal instinct for vengeance, then chose to override it with a higher commitment to reasoned duty and forgiveness. He died in the year 180, inside a military camp near the Danube. The constant warfare and administration had broken his frail health, but he had successfully held the borders of the empire together. The tragedy of his legacy is his son, Commodus. Taking the throne immediately after his father's death, Commodus rapidly dismantled the empire's stability, embracing the exact vanity, bloodshed, and tyranny that Marcus had spent his life resisting. We might not command Roman legions, but the psychological threats are identical. We deal with ungrateful colleagues, face unexpected illness, the pressure of our responsibilities, and the underlying anxiety of mortality. The Diary of Marcus Aurelius remains a compelling document because it proves a difficult truth. We will never be able to control the chaos of the external world, but we always have the capacity to maintain absolute sovereignty over the empire of our own minds.